Hey guys, so I feel really bad about filming this video specifically today because I received PR for this movie, The Grudge, and although no money was exchanged or anything like that, my opinion can't be bought anyways, so I do feel bad that I have to give such a negative review for something that I did receive PR for, but I just hope that, you know, shows that just because I received something from a movie or go to an early screening or something like that, my opinions will still be just that, my opinions, and they can't be bought. So with that, let's get into the first movie I watched in 2020, The Grudge. I think it's like a common belief that movies, especially horror movies that are released early in the year, tend to do poorly, but I don't really believe in that because I've talked about Escape Room a million times. That came out January 4th of 2019. That was the first horror movie I saw of 2019 and I loved it a lot. So I don't think it's necessarily a curse, pun intended, that The Grudge came out early on in the year because I don't believe in that whole like rumor, I guess. Now from the get-go, I didn't really understand why they wanted to do another Grudge movie, and also when they released the plot and the details of it, I still didn't understand why they were really going to be making this movie because it just doesn't make sense in the Grudge universe. I'm not sure what I'm titling this video yet, but let me just start by saying that this movie does not feel like a Grudge movie. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's not a Grudge movie because it's not really related to the previous Grudge movies, including the original Ju-on. So the new Grudge movie follows a detective and her son. They've just moved to this like new town for whatever reason. You don't really feel connected to them at all. And so the detective is investigating a few strange deaths that are happening in this town. And it mostly takes place within this one house, I would say, that has a curse on it that anyone who steps foot inside is then cursed by the grudge of the house. So the series of events that happen in this new movie happen concurrently with what happens in the original Grudge, not the original, the American Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and The Grudge 2, which happened in 2004 and 2006. So that is the time period that this movie is set in. Basically, there's a caregiver who leaves Japan to come home to America, and with her brings the curse of the Grudge. And then what I suspect is Sarah Michelle Gellar moves into that house to care for them, and that's when the like American Grudge takes place. So I have so many issues with this movie. It was so hard, and I spent $25 on this movie because I paid for myself and my boyfriend, and I was just thinking the whole time, damn, I spent $25 on this movie. That sounds so mean, and I normally don't care. I just wish I saw this on a damn Tuesday when I could have gotten a deal. Anyway, it's not about the money. I obviously do this for a living, so it's really not. I want to review everything that I can, but I was mad the whole time thinking about it. So the first scene, the opening scene of The Grudge, is the best part of the whole movie, and then it gets into my first red flag, which is there are 3 sentences of text in the beginning explaining how the Grudge is formed, how this curse happens. And for one, I don't think you need to explain that to Grudge fans. And 2, I feel like that is making the viewer feel stupid, that you are telling us instead of showing us. And I feel like that is the #1 rule when it comes to storytelling, is show, don't tell. I personally, it's one of my biggest pet peeves in movies is when they treat the audience like they're stupid and that they have to explain the entire plot to the viewer because they're worried they won't connect the dots and get the whole thing. If you're a decent screenwriter and storyteller, you will be able to tell your whole story without having to tell the viewer directly and like be obvious about it. So that's my first biggest issue. That's a very generic thing that happens throughout the entire movie. The scares in it, oh my gosh. I liked one scare. Most of them, I'd say 90% are jump scares. Some of them, it does have some nuances here and there where you see like shadows in the background. You see the number 4 shown a lot, which is a cool, you know, thing to show because it is a bad luck number in Japan. So it's nice that we're getting a little bit of Japan in there. Not much, but most of it is definitely extreme jump scares that are so lame and so redundant. Like, you see the same ghosts like over and over again, or every ghost does the same exact thing, and it's so predictable, it's so repetitive that it just gets annoying. For me, some of the scares come from seeing like the dead bodies, and I felt like it did really well there. Like the effects and the practical makeup and stuff that they created for the dead bodies looked really good. Like that was very decent. Another thing that was my biggest pet peeve that I literally turned to my boyfriend and I'm like, why are there so many people in this movie? Like there are just too many characters. They don't stay with any one character long enough or build up a backstory long enough to where you actually care for any of them, because you don't really even differentiate between them towards the end, because there's so many things, so many storylines and plot points that are going on. So the character development is very, very bad, and there's just too many characters in general. I feel like it needed to be limited, focus on the detective lady, and then like one or two side things that happen, because there are certain characters and storylines within this movie that if you removed them entirely, it would not take away from the plot at all. Also, dare I say that the casting of the main detective girl wasn't believable as a detective. It's almost like this movie wanted to be kind of a procedural crime drama horror, but they don't actually do any detective work. They don't actually do any procedural crime stuff in it. So it's just like a side point. Sometimes she goes to work, but she's not actually working on anything. And it's like she's looking at security footage and stuff for these deaths that she's investigating, but she's not really doing anything. Saw was a better procedural crime drama horror than this movie. The ending, so anticlimactic and so predictable. Also, in the end, they recap everything that you just spent an hour watching, and I'm not sure why they did that. And it goes back to my first point of them treating the viewer like they're dumb. It's like we had forgotten who was who because you put too many characters in, so you did flashbacks. Literally the same scenes, showing the same scenes from before earlier on in the movie. It just did not make sense. So based on the trailer for this, I can understand why Grudge fans were a little excited for this, and a lot of you thought it was going to be really good and you really wanted to see it. I can see why that would be because of how the trailers are. However, this is kind of a spoiler, but it's okay because we don't need to go watch this movie because it's really bad. You know Kayako, the main person in The Grudge, the horror element from The Grudge, she has 7 seconds of screen time, and it all happens in the first opening scene. Hence why I said that that is the best scene in the entire movie. It's because that is the only time that we actually see Kayako. When they showed this opening scene and they showed Kayako, I was like, oh wow, we're getting started fast. We're just jumping right in. I was getting excited because I like the idea of Kayako. Obviously, it's kind of like my favorite kind of horror trope is like the ghosty girl, I don't know. But to my dismay, she never came back. So what I suspect is Kayako stayed behind in Japan, obviously, because this takes place at the same time as the Sarah Michelle Gellar Grudge movie. So then what did that lady bring back to America? Was it just the curse, the grudge? Was it just like the essence of it? It obviously didn't bring Kayako with her, so what did she bring back to America that then cursed this house? Like what I'm thinking is she felt haunted by this building in Japan, right, that she was caring for someone in, and she brought it back, at least the thought of it, with her, and then killed her family. And because a grudge is formed when there is a brutal death, it like sticks to the house, right? So I'm guessing that's how the grudge in America became something, I don't know. It's ironic to me that they tell you so much of the story over and over again to make sure you get it, but then don't really explain this plot point of how it actually makes sense that it could take place at the same time in America as it's happening in Japan as well. There are some inconsistency issues that I had with it. There was a moment where it zooms in on the alarm clock, and I think it was 4:44, right? Because 4 is a big number in this movie. Like I said, it represents a bad luck number in Japan. So it zoomed in on the alarm clock saying 4:44, and then in the next scene it's zoomed out, but you can still read the alarm clock and it says 4:34. So it's a little odd. Also, I want to say, not only did we not have Kayako in this movie pretty much at all of the ghosts make the same guttural noise that The Grudge is famous for. All of them made it, and that doesn't make sense because from what I remember, back in the original Grudge American version, only Kayako makes that sound, and then you have like the cat boy and things like that. They're different ghosts, make different noises, because then it's just overdone and overplayed. So every time they'd make that noise, I'd be like, but Kayako's not here. So also, I feel like they fake you out a lot in the trailer thinking that you're gonna see Kayako a lot, and what it actually is just other ghosts that have long dark hair that kind of resemble her. So, however, I do want to say some positives it has going, because I don't want it to be completely negative. Lin Shaye and John Cho were great actors. They were definitely the highlight for me, even though you could remove their characters and then it'd still be the same plot, same movie. But I did like their stories, I guess, and their acting. The acting was really decent, besides like the main people. Also, I really like the soundtrack, mostly at the end when it's like in the climax scene. I really liked that song, or that soundtrack aspect, so the soundtrack was pretty good. It stood out to me anyway, in a good way. So I'm sorry to the PR company that sent me the PR. I didn't love this movie, and I'm kind of bummed that this is how we're starting 2020, although I don't think that means anything. And also, it did get a very rare F score from CinemaScore. Not that I trust critics or believe in scores online, but only 20 other movies in history have ever gotten that score. So, and I was a little disappointed because Sam Raimi's a producer on it, and I typically like his work, so I was just like confused. If you were excited about this movie, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You might still love it. Obviously, my opinion is just mine, but a lot of people are talking about how bad this movie really is. So anyway, that is it for this review. Ooh, I feel really bad. I'm really scared to edit this and like see how negative I really am. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.